today you'll be receiving from a message full of God's power to help you become everything that God has created you to be. You know, God sent his son, Jesus, to die for you to have a life of abundance and for you to be an ambassador for him. What does that mean? That your life should represent his goodness. It's time to be about it. Tune in today's message and you'll be blessed.
Being a demanding person or bulldozing people is a sign of impatience. If you're that person in the car and you riding on somebody's tail honking the horn because they're going too slow for you, you need to focus on verse 4 in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Let me also say this as well. Using anger to manipulate people to do what you want is also something you need to get your nose in the book. Because when you use anger or trying to scare people, you better do what you better do what you're doing all of that, you are nothing. Despite you may have all of the miracles, you may have all the prophecies, you may have everything else, and could that be what's holding back your harvest? So many people are like, I've been in church. I know I walk by faith. I don't understand why this isn't working for me. This is why the Lord has given us this message here at Word of Faith. The Lord's kind of directed us that are ministering up here and behind this pulpit to go back to the basics. So it's very important that you have patience in your relationships. This also means when people aren't changing fast enough for you. Now, I'm gonna figure out which side is with me tonight. Because, you came out here, you might as well pull, right? But sometimes I need you to get this a little bit faster. And sometimes you deal with people who they get it and they don't get it. Even when it comes to children. The Bible says, and I learned this quickly. My son is 10 months and I learned this. It says foolishness is found in the heart of a child. Before when my son started throwing temper tantrums, at first it was funny because we were like, did he just throw himself out and he's trying to kick his little leg? Was he throwing a temper tantrum? And I remember texting my father-in-law. He said, it's interesting how they come out with that ability. I said, it is interesting that they came out with that ability. But you know what? The first time I started trying to teach my son that just because you don't get your way doesn't mean you can throw a temper tantrum. How many of you know that he didn't get that overnight? How many of you know he's still throwing tantrums? How many of you know we probably still got, quite a few bits of time we have to teach him to adjust that. But that doesn't mean that I can talk to my son like he's nothing. If you treat your child and talk to your child like they're the bottom of your shoe, don't be surprised when they get older and those are the type of relationships they think are normal. Because you are determining what is their normal. Let me also give a tip to the single person. When you're dating somebody, it's not just about how they look and, how they, you want to go find out what their background is like. What was normal to them so you can have those discussions so you all can compare because it's what's normal to you that becomes the problems in the marriage. My parents give this example all the time. I'm going to give it a different way. My dad gives it all the time. I'm going to give it my parents talk about how at the beginning of their marriage, they had so much trouble. And one of the reasons why is if you've met my grandmother Butler, she is probably one of the most elegant people you'll ever meet. You go to her house, like have you ever gone to a fancy restaurant and it's like 4 forks and 3 spoons and it's like a spoon up top and, it's like the little raking thing to clean off the, If you go to my grandma's house, you're probably going to see some version of that. It's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 forks. Okay? She's just always been that way. Very classy, very elegant. So this is how she raised my dad. And so she would serve him food on china. And they would have more than 1 course at it. I'm laughing because clearly that didn't make it through my house. But anyway, But anyway, that's what he was used to. She'd run his bath water so he could get his bath and have his dinner and have his appetizer, his main course, and then have his dessert. And of course, my mother grew up with 12 brothers and sisters. So first of all, it's not that much china in the house. Nobody's getting more than 1 fork or spoon if you get one at all, right? And 9 of them were boys. And if you see, my body type is more like my mom's side of the family. If you see us, we'll scare you because, You know, I'm 5'10", I got uncle 6'4", I got, they good size, Bell family. And so for my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather did a wonderful job of raising their kids on my grandfather's salary alone. So they did what was necessary to make it so that the whole house operated well. That would even include whether or not they use plastic plates or plastic cups or anything along those lines. But those are two completely different normals for them. So my dad talks about how my mom cooked him dinner one day and she brought it to him on a plastic plate with a plastic cup, and it was all in one. Like, here's your protein, here's your carb, and here's your dessert, which is some applesauce or something like that. And he talked about he went ballistic because he's like, don't you disrespect me like that. Because in his house, my grandmother taught him it was respectful to do certain things a certain way. And again, what am I talking about? I'm talking about these, neither one is right or wrong. It's just two different ways people were raised for two different reasons. And again, if you explode just because somebody did something you don't understand, you need to take a beat and learn to live with patience and give people time to adapt to you, to have the conversations needed to have, and stop letting Satan get into your marriage, get into your relationships. Now you beefed out, don't like anybody. I thought the Lord sent me to you. He did send that person to you. But you got to do some work. You have to live the word. God is not a genie in a bottle. You have to change yourself. And that includes being patient.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I want to encourage you to subscribe. Also share with your friends. People need encouragement, especially those, you may know some people who are really going through. Go on and share this podcast with them. I also want to encourage you to visit our website. We've got some material that can help you. That's michelleferguson.org. And as always, I'm Michelle Ferguson, helping you to discover, develop, and celebrate who God has created you to be. Look forward to seeing you next time.